Too Good to Be True crime, which is set on a cruise ship. A cross between Survivor and Lord of the Flies. We are joined by our band members.
Too fucking good to be true crime.
You guys sing backup for me really, really well.
Here we are back for another episode of Too Good to Be True Crime, our third and final Japan episode. I'm here with Austin Turner, who is normally in New York City, but today, as we have been for the last two episodes, we're face to face in Japan on a lovely cruise ship. Hello, mate.
Hey there.
How you doing?
It's wonderful to see your face.
Tell me about your day this morning.
My day this morning, man, I'm so jet lagged. I don't even know what was this morning, what was last night. I started walking out of my room and my eyes just closed. While I was walking, they just decided to close. So it did take me a few minutes to wake up. But then we got out, we're in Hakodate.
Hakodate, yeah.
Hakodate.
I think that's how you say it.
Yeah, we got off. We took a shuttle bus into the center of town, and it was just a lovely little seaside town. It made me think of Carousel. This little seaside, little clam bake.
Theatre analogy. Are you still jet lagged now?
I'm always going to give you a musical theatre analogy. I think I'm still jet lagged. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm out the other side of it now. It took me days. Oh, mate, it felt awful, honestly, for days. And I had a cold yesterday, but I think I'm firing on all cylinders today.
I would not say you're firing on all cylinders today.
Mate, it's a special episode today because obviously we're in Japan. We've talked about this on previous pods. Our day job is singers and we're in a band. And very, very exciting because today we are joined by our band members from Unity, Garrett, Deagon and Brian McCann are in the house. Give them a round of applause, everybody. Brian, are you still jet lagged?
I'm not, Richard, because I was in sort of the Thailand, Singapore area for a few weeks on honeymoon.
Yeah.
And so I kind of came in on the same time zone, so I've been very lucky in that way.
How was your honeymoon?
It was lovely, thank you.
Yeah.
It was a lot of cheap Chang beer, and that's the name of the brand.
Okay.
You better watch yourself, Brian.
I do have to say, Richard, it's ironic that your podcast is called Too Good to Be True Crime, because me guesting on it feels, for me, too good to be true.
Go on. Mate, you're welcome. We've also got Garrett, Deagon, fresh from LA, our LA contingent. Mate, how you doing? Are you jet lagged? You all right?
I'm all right. Yeah, that was the worst jet lag we've had to deal with by far. I mean, when we went to Portugal, that was a couple hours back to Tahiti, but for some reason this one just kicked my ass.
Yeah.
I feel okay now, but this was the hardest adjustment we've had so far by far.
It was, and it's ironic that you're just coming out the other side of it, just getting ready to prepare for your flight back to LA.
Not to mention, we have to sing and perform. Like, we're jet lagged, trying to navigate a rusty voice, a tired physical body, and we have to get up there and turn it on.
So talking about our shows, we've performed already on the ship, haven't we?
Yeah, we did.
Performed a couple of nights ago. The shows went good, didn't they?
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys sing backup for me really, really well.
I feel like we do. We facilitate you as best we can.
Yeah, I'm Garrett. I'm Garrett. I'm the Beyonce of the group. I'm also the one lone member of the LGBTQ club. So
we asked you not to talk about that on this podcast, Garrett.
Have we all learnt Japanese?
Richard, you did go for some Japanese.
I'd learnt a full sentence, to be fair. I'd learnt a full sentence.
Which you successfully said twice.
Yes.
So I was supposed to say, Minisan konbanwa, shohei yokoso. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Which is quite straightforward, isn't it? But during the song that we were singing before I had to say that, all that was going through my mind is, I've got to say it in English, and then I've got to say it in Japanese.
That's when the gremlins get in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the gremlins start saying, well, you don't know how to say that line. So that's all you're thinking about. So then when you actually go to speak the line, you're like, well, I don't know what it is.
And the first two shows, like you said, I said it and it was fine.
Brilliant.
In the third show, I said one word, and then what happened?
You said the word. What was the
Minasan?
Minasan, and then you sort of stopped, smiled, pointed to the audience, went, you know,
you know,
you know what I'm about to say.
And what they did know, they knew that I'd forgotten it.
That's absolutely what
they did know. The pause was a lot longer than I thought it was. Because often on stage, isn't it, if there's a problem, you think that feels like it was an age, but when you listen back to it or watch it back, you think it's not as long as that.
This was not the case.
Absolutely was as long as that and more.
Yeah.
When they laughed, suddenly it just popped back in there, and I said it and I got away with it.
You saved it.
But... Arigato! 皆 Sam. You know. Sam Konbanwa! So we're on a cruise ship. We've all done a lot of cruising with our show, haven't we? We've been around the world. Garrett, you just said we've been to Tahiti, Hawaii, now we're in Japan, lots of the Caribbean, Canada. Being on a cruise ship, things change like in a heartbeat. You know, schedules change, you know, people get ill, you have to drop people off because they're sick, whatever. You know, rescheduling means you can't like dock in like certain ports and all that kind of stuff, right? And we know that could change. Literally, it happened to us here, didn't it? We were supposed to port somewhere and then the weather was bad and they had to move it around quickly, find different entertainment because the guests were going to be kept. The one that really sticks in my mind is the one we did when we were in Costa Rica. Again, because of the weather. I think we had to leave early and we were supposed to go to the Panama Canal, weren't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
okay.
so
Oh my God, yeah.
remind me of this. Now, for what I remember is that the weather came in, it was like 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon and it was like black as night out there. It got so dark that heavens opened and there was a excursion to the rainforest. So there was 41 people that were on an excursion in the rainforest.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we were sitting in the dining room and we were thinking, well, we're supposed to leave soon. Are we going to be able to leave port?
Yeah.
And there was rumours that these people had not made it back to the ship yet.
So
what
I
happened
remember a woman at the front desk, like this was all kind of developing in real time, right? And I just remember a woman at the front desk saying like, well, my husband is out there. Like, I need to know if my husband's going to make it back. And so immediately I was like, oh, something's curious here. Like something's not quite right.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, we're sitting at dinner, the four of us, and we're around the table. And the captain comes on, and Brian, can you give me a little bit of the captain?
Ladies and gentlemen, because of the inclement weather, as you know, there's 41 people who haven't returned to the ship yet because they are on an excursion. Because of the weather and because of our schedule, we have made the decision to leave the 41 behind.
And there was a big gasp,
like,
isn't there? Like,
Yeah.
Well, there was a gasp for about 5 seconds, and then everyone just went back to
back to
eating
their
their meal.
foods, didn't they? They did, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
typically with an excursion too, if you book an excursion with the ship,
Yeah.
like one of the guarantees of the excursion is no matter what goes wrong or how long you're out there, the
Right.
ship will wait for you. That's
Right.
always been a thing.
Yeah.
But because we were going through the Panama Canal and there's like a backlog of like, I don't know, thousands of
Tight
ships that have to get
schedule,
through
yeah.
there, they were like, we got to just press on. And he's got 4 people.
The 41.
And I think of that woman at the desk who had to learn that information that her husband was going to get left behind, and she must have had a freaking meltdown.
Yeah.
I would lose my shit. I would
Yeah.
lose my shit
She
if my
did-
wife was off the ship and wasn't going to come back. I would lose.
Yeah.
They would have to put me in a cell.
And they probably would. And the thing is, they didn't have passports, these people.
No.
So then
Yeah.
they had to. So the next time that they could join us was we have to cross through the Panama Canal, and I think the next port was Aruba. So I think people started to filter back onto the ship in Aruba, and they'd managed to negotiate them going through different countries
Yeah.
without a passport to get them to Aruba.
They had passports, but they didn't have their passports
In the
on them.
rainforest
Yes.
that day, yeah.
But the 41 made it back on board, and the guests were all told that the 41 would be treated quite nicely
Yeah.
to a nice hotel and food. But what was the reality?
Well, we met 2 on the jogging track, didn't we? And
Yeah.
they told us that it wasn't the case at all.
They showed us a video and it was like landslides and like mud in the yeah, it was terrible. And then I think
God.
they got to a hotel. I don't know if it was the 5-star hotel that we were led to believe.
Yeah.
But then they gave the clothes they were wearing because they were obviously like sodden with mud, soaking wet. I think it was somewhere in middle Costa Rica. And the chambermaids had taken their clothes, gave them a dressing gown, and the clothes never returned. So not only did they
Oh
not
my
have
God.
the clothes that they were standing up in originally, they literally just had like a hotel dressing gown. And I think they had to make their way back to the ship eventually. In one of the songs that we do is called Bring Him Home, and I think we dedicated that song to the 41 when we performed.
This one's
is
for the
dedicated to the
41.
41.
The audience is
And I
like-
think there was a round of applause. There was. It was intense, but not as intense as this particular story,
Okay.
right? A Too Good to Be True crime, which is set on a cruise ship. Now, there's not a specific perpetrator of this particular Too Good to Be True crime. So what I'm going to do at the end, I'm going to ask you guys who you think is at fault for this particular
Okay.
Too Good to Be True crime, and if indeed a crime was even committed, you can make your own judgment.
Okay.
All right. Some news outlets have described this as being a cross between Survivor and Lord of the Flies. It's pretty intense. And I know, Brian, you're not a fan of poo, are you? You're not a fan of shit. I mean, is anyone?
I love shit.
Ships.
Of shit.
Oh, shit.
Yeah,
No,
like
I don't. I
actual
don't.
shit.
I don't love shit.
No.
As a member of the LGBT crowd.
You've had a few. You've had a few incidents.
Shit is part of the conversation.
Yeah.
I'm going to warn you now that this story involves
okay.
a little bit of that.
Shitty story.
Okay. So, right, imagine you're not working on a cruise ship, but imagine that you've it's spring break, you're about to go on a vacation, you're thinking, right, there's going to be nice food, there's going to be nice weather, there's going to be parties, good entertainment, you're welcome. Not a care in the world, time to recharge and reset. 3,143 passengers on this particular cruise ship. It was February 2013, so it was about 10 years ago from now, and it was an absolute nightmare.
Oh no.
Galveston, Texas, to Cozumel was the cruise. So this was the early hours of Sunday, February the 10th, and it was around about 5:25 a.m. And they left Cozumel, and it was about to start its journey back to Galveston, Texas. And then over the PA system, there was the call, Alpha Team, Alpha Team, Alpha Team. Tell me what Alpha means.
Medical emergency, right? So if that happens on a ship, it overrides anything that's happening. So I remember we did, myself and Austin, when we were Rocky. I don't know if it happened in our contract, but we were doing, it's a song called Crazy Little Thing Called Love, and it's when all the ensemble are on, the whole cast are basically on stage doing this huge, big number. Yeah. And we unfortunately had an alpha breakout, but the orchestra don't know that the music has stopped, so everything continues.
They've got their headphones in, right?
Yeah,
so they can hear,
so they still think it's live, but everyone's on stage singing, and all you hear is Alpha, 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 Deck 2, Zombie, Park outside. But they have to do it 3 times.
Yeah.
So you're standing there on stage going, oh, no. It again feels like about 10 minutes. But yeah, Alpha is a medical emergency. I remember that from my training.
Which is correct. This one, Alpha Team, is the fire emergency call. So it's slightly different for them. So on the ships we've done, Alpha is medical. This one is a fire emergency, right? So the guests were coming out of their cabins, and the hallways were filled with smoke. They were grabbing life jackets. They were heading to their muster stations. Their muster stations are their like emergency meeting points. Now the guests were told after a while, it's all under control. It's no problem. Just go back to your cabins. We've sorted it out. We've sorted the problem. But soon after that, all the ship's lighting just went out. All the electricity, all the ship's lighting went out. So there was like people running down the corridor screaming, like all hell was breaking loose. Now, what I do know is that when we work, we all worked as crew members on a ship once, and it's very organised when there was like a drill. So you go and stand, you stand quietly. Yeah. And we always said, if there was a real emergency, it would be utter chaos. And clearly that is what happened on this, all right? Okay, so the fire was extinguished by 6:08 a.m. So about 45 minutes took, but the ship's power and the propulsion system was disabled. So they had no power and the ship couldn't move anywhere. So it was literally just stranded in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico.
Did they say what the fire?
They did say what it was. I will get to that in just one second. So there was, on this ship, along with the passengers, there was like 1,100 staff as well. So you've got, over 3,000 guests. 1,100 staff. So you're looking at 4,000 people on literally something with no power and literally no propulsion system. So it's literally just floating in the Gulf of Mexico. I would imagine like people were going, are we ever going to get home? Now we do know the Gulf of Mexico is busy. There's a lot of ships around, okay? But it's a massive expanse of water still. So we don't know how long at that point it would take for someone to come and rescue them, okay? So what they decided to do, they called in and 2 tugboats were going to come, connect themselves to the boat, and they were going to drag the vessel to Progreso, which was the nearest port, right? So that's still in Mexico. So they were going to drag, they were going to tug the ship to that port 4 days before they actually got to dry land or saw any land whatsoever. Within a day, no running water, no air conditioning, no electrics, no lights. There were no elevators. But this is where it gets awful. The most important thing was there was no toilet sewage system whatsoever.
Oh, because that's probably powered by some sort of electric.
So literally everything had failed and like nothing was working. Okay, so The passengers were told, so the cruise director comes on the PA system and the cruise director says, right, you're going to have some red bags delivered to your cabins, okay? And they said, if you need a number 2, you have to do it in the red bag and leave it in your bin in the corridor. That's trash can for you American people.
Oh my God.
So leave it in your trash can and leave it in the corridor. And they explained what a number 2 was. She said, if you need a number 2, that's a poop. Do it in the red bag. do it in the red bag.
Oh, they cleared that up.
Do it in the red bag and leave it in the corridor.
Oh
right?
my God. Oh, the smell.
And then she said, if you need a number 1, that's a wee. Do it in the shower. So put the poo bags in the corridor, and if you need a slash, do it in the shower. Now, what you got to remember is they were being told to do it in the shower, but there's no running water. So you're literally like, going to the toilet in the shower and it's just sitting there. You can't wash it down.
God.
So imagine the smell of that. Also, I don't know what type of guests they're on there. So it's a 4-day cruise. It's a party cruise.
Yeah.
So it's surprising to me that those people needed to have it explained to them what a number 2 and what a number 1 was, which I don't understand. It's really hot in that region of the world. Okay,
no.
It's gonna stink, right? So in the cabins, people were like, I can't stand it in my cabin anymore. So they started dragging their mattresses like out into the corridors, out to the top decks where it's hot. Because imagine being in a cabin, especially the rooms that are like internal rooms where there's no windows, there's no ventilation, nothing's working. Plus, taking a slash in the shower, taking a dump in a red bag, it's going to be foul, right? It's going to be absolutely disgusting. So what happened was they started to drag their mattresses and their sheets out onto the top deck, and they started to make like a tent city, like on the pool deck. So the whole of the top deck was just like makeshift tents, and there was like people just like sleeping there. No one had showered. It was hot, sweaty bodies. It was absolutely disgusting, right? The cruise staff decided, right, what can we do? How can we kind of like, de-stress people? So they decided to open a free bar. So they said, right, free drinks for everyone. As you said, Garrett, it's a booze cruise, right?
Yeah.
So you know that everyone's going to be like cramming to the bar. And what happened was, it was an absolute disaster because you're always going to get a few fucking morons that are going to like just take advantage of that, and they would literally get smashed up. And then of course fights broke out, people were arguing,
Throwing
people
up.
were worried for their safety. Exactly. It was literally absolute chaos. They were like being obnoxious, throwing stuff overboard, and it's not the staff's fault, is it? I mean, like, they're doing what they can, but they were obviously aiming their venom at the staff, and you're like, we know what it's like with the crew. A lot of crew members are really lovely. They work 14 hours. They work a long time, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they work
Very long hours.
Yeah, and imagine having to deal with
They're
that.
also dealing with the same things that the guests are dealing with.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they're going back to cabins that they usually share.
Shitting in red bags.
Yeah, and just leaving it in the corridor. Imagine. But then I was thinking, when I was doing my research, someone's got to remove those red bags. And if you've got, 4,000 people on a cruise ship, if everyone's regular, that's 4,000 dumps every day that's going to be sitting in the corridor, and someone has got to go and remove those. And those people are not getting paid extra money to do that.
And then what's the protocol? Like, someone's unzipping the bag, dumping it over the board? Like, what are they supposed to do with it? Like,
Yeah.
feed it to the fish? Like,
Well, there's like must be a septic tank on the ship somewhere. Do you think the septic tank?
but it was not working.
If all the guests were like rich,
Yeah.
there would be no excess because
My body uses every single calorie that it absorbs, to be honest. So I probably would have been okay on this particular cruise. Anyway, gets to Tuesday morning and the tugboats arrived. This point, as the tugboats arrived, though, the ship had drifted 90 miles.
90 miles.
90 miles.
They couldn't throw down the anchor?
No, I don't know. I mean, the anchor goes...
It's so deep there.
Exactly, the anchor
Right.
goes when we're close to port, right? So I'd imagine the anchor would go down and they'd still be probably, a couple of hundred meters before the seabed. So, it may have slowed it down. They couldn't release the stabilizers because there's no power. So it was literally just a floating cesspit, right? Progresso was not the nearest port anymore. So they decided that they weren't going to take it to Progresso. So they plotted a new course. Now, there were a couple of passengers that needed dialysis and a couple of other medical things, right? So what they did, they managed to get another ship to head to this particular ship, and they couldn't take everyone, so they just removed the people that needed the medical emergencies. Right. So imagine that though, like the other cruise ship that's working fine, everyone's going hey with their beers and go hey all right, and everyone on this particular ship is like literally having a trauma.
Their poop bags.
Yeah, and they just see these people that need medical attention be taken off, like taken to this other ship, and then that ship disappeared. Do you think at that point would you be weighing up the pros and cons of like making a break for it, making a swim?
I'm sure somebody did. I'm sure somebody faked their sickness and just to get on the other ship. Like,
do you think so?
Definitely.
Yeah. I've got a condition.
So by this point, the food was starting to run out as well. At this point, okay, so the conditions were getting really bad. But on the plus side, they were given cold onion and cucumber sandwiches.
That's so great.
Onion and cucumber? God.
Oh, they're so lucky.
Perfect combination, many people say.
But not only they got the cold onion and cucumber sandwiches, it was like hours to queue to get these. So that was all the food that was available at this point, and they were queuing, people arguing, fighting, etc., etc. It's like Hunger Games stuff, isn't it? Really? That's the kind of thing. Okay, so 3 other ships eventually came, and they dropped off provisions, but the high winds made it quite difficult to get these provisions on, and there, you can look at this on YouTube, and the ship is really listing, and these other ships are trying to so people are like reaching out trying to like grab provisions, and they were missing, and they were like falling into the sea and stuff. So they were like thinking this is absolute chaos. Now what they decided to do, they were going to go to a place called Mobile, which is in Alabama. Do you know it?
Yep, I think they call it Mobile.
Right, Mobile. Okay, so that's where they were going to take them, but the tugboats, they're not that strong. So the lines kept snapping. So they would like attach the line, start tugging the ship, and then they'd snap, and they'd have to start the process.
Isn't that the whole point of a tugboat?
I know, they should be strong, right? A helicopter eventually arrived, and it dropped off provisions, and it dropped off a generator. So they had this like small generator, so that means they could cook some kind of hot food for people. So they were thinking things are starting to turn around.
Pizza.
Still shit bags though.
Still shit bags at this point, but some of the sanitary facilities started to rework themselves. But not every. You might have like 3 toilets like on each level that worked. So there's 4,000 people. So it's still not a particularly inviting place to do your business. Their phones had run out at this point, so they couldn't speak to anyone. So then they brought some charging points on, and then there's like a spaghetti. You can check this out on Google as well. There's like pictures of just a spaghetti of wires everywhere. So you look at it, you go, I don't even know what is my charger there. It's like phones, wires everywhere. It was just absolute mania. Friends and family started to go to Mobile to kind of wait for this ship to come in. I think some internet had started to work, but only when the other Carnival ships that dropped off provisions were close enough, and they could jump onto their Wi-Fi. And to be honest, as we know, the Wi-Fi on cruise ships is shit at the best of the time. So imagine like trying to like connect to a Wi-Fi to a ship that's like 100 meters up the road. It was awful. So it came in to the port in Mobile. And because the ports never had a ship that size come into it, it took them 6 hours to maneuver the ship into the port. So it hit the edge of the harbour, and it took 6 hours slowly moving. And people are just standing looking at it. People could start to see their loved ones and stuff. So they're like waving and like, but it took 6 hours, like pretty much most of the night, for it to actually like port itself and tie the lines up. So eventually the passengers started to disembark, and it's really dramatic. Again, I watched this on YouTube, and they're getting off, they're kissing the pavement, they're hugging the concrete on the floor.
As if they've been gone for like months or something. Yeah.
In the small print, as there always is with every massive company, the small print says this, and I'm going to read this verbatim. If the performance of the proposed voyage is hindered or prevented by the breakdown of the vessel, Carnival may cancel the proposed voyage without liability to refund passage money or fares paid in advance. Basically, what that said was, we owe you nothing. It's just, it's not our fault. It happened, so we're not going to pay you anything.
You're shit out of luck.
Would being American, you're the first thing you do? Let's sue their ass.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, well, that fine print obviously doesn't apply to the Americans on board, but I know what you mean.
Of course. But I will say, in Carnival's defense, they did actually give each passenger $500. They gave them a flight home. They gave them a full refund for their trip and reimbursed most of their expenses after that on board. And they gave them a full credit for another cruise.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, how sweet.
But we talk about lawsuits. That didn't actually stop a multitude of lawsuits being filed by the passengers returning back into the USA. So obviously you're going to mobile, right? A lot of people, that's not where they boarded the ship, so they've got to get from there. And some of the people were living in places where there was not access to a decent airport, so they were put on buses to be taken to the nearest airport that could get them back to their actual airport. Now, one of the buses on the way to the airport, which is like 2 hours away, one of the buses like broke down.
No.
Those
Did they have to
passengers.
poop in bag on the bus as
They
well?
were all right. When they got off the boat, they were given food and stuff, so they were okay. But I mean, the last thing you want to do is have your bus break down, right? The Triumph, which was the cruise ship, it was moored in the port, and basically they planned to do some repairs on it, right?
Good plan.
Yeah, so they could get it back, seaworthy again, which was going to take a long time.
Yeah.
Whilst it was in the port, they tied the lines, but the lines that were holding it to the port broke, and it drifted across the Mobile River.
What?
Yeah, and it smashed into a dredge, which is what gets all the sediment out of the water, and it pinned a towboat between the ship and the dredge, and one person lost their life during that incident. That's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's like fated. This
The ship has got to go.
Final
Sink it.
destination. Yeah.
It literally, whatever happens to it, something always goes wrong, and then someone lost their life, which is of course tragic. Now, Carnival paid $188,500 in damages to 27 passengers, and that was for like doctor's bills, hospital costs and stuff related to the cruise. And then they spent $115 million in cleaning, repairing, and massively upgrading the ship. Right. So, the first question I've got to ask, in your opinion, who do you think's at fault for this?
Well, it's whoever started the fire.
Do you think it was like a freak accident, or do you think it was?
Do we know how the fire started or where it started?
I want to know what your opinion is. Like,
How do we suspect the fire started?
yeah,
Is it because I know there was been instances of guests smoking on a balcony, throwing the cigarette out, and then the wind blows it back,
Yeah.
which sets fire. So I'm thinking, by that look in your face, it could be something like that.
Or like I wonder too. It's like was a 4-day tugboat journey really the best solution for this problem? Like, surely there was a ship somewhere that could slowly get people off. Like, there must have been an alternative solution. Because I mean, when you're in the middle of the ocean, I know you're pretty far, but like Texas, Mexico, like they're not that far. Like, surely somebody had. Why don't they employ the like fucking Marines or something, like the U.S. Navy or something to come save
well,
you?
four cruise ships had come and dropped off provisions. You'd think if you spread those 4,000 passengers amongst those 4 cruise ships, you could get people off, but they didn't.
Well, we know the cruise lines and the tugboats probably were not the most efficient. They were probably the least costly, and that's probably why they went with the tugboats.
That's a good
if you
point,
ask
actually.
me.
I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, they were probably cheap. Because especially they probably maybe, if they got the tugboats from Progresso, they may have been Mexican tugboats as well, which might have been cheaper than Americans as well. Okay, so Carnival declared it was a fuel leak. Okay, it was in the engine room, and that's what sparked the blaze. Okay. A lot of people that were like starting rumours said it was down to negligence, okay? So over 2 years, 9 incidents had been reported involving fuel leaks linked to flexible fuel lines, which this ship had.
On this 9 incidences on this
On
ship?
this ship.
Oh my gosh.
Now, Carnival gave ships 2 months in 2013 to install spray shields for all diesel engines using these flexible lines. But the Triumph failed to shield a hose, which ended up causing the infamous poop cruise. Okay. So there's basically they were told to do something. They had 2 months to do it. They didn't. There was one that they failed to shield, and that's what caused the spark, which caused the fire. Okay. So do you think that suggests it's a manufacturing problem, or do you think it's the companies that's employed to carry out these repairs and stuff?
Well, I don't know what it's like to have to install a spray shield, Garrett.
Well, if they were meant to, this is where they are liable. If they were meant to do this specific repair to avoid this problem happening, and they missed doing the repair, and the problem happened, they are liable for that.
Yeah.
That was a mistake on their part, and they messed up.
Yeah, but do you think that Carnival, who are instructing the company to do that, have to take responsibility because they perhaps didn't double check that had been done, or do you think they trusted that job would be done because they'd instructed it to happen?
I guess Carnival could sue that company that was meant to do that. Yeah. Carnival could pass the buck to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got a question. So, you have your red bags for going for number 2 in.
Number 2.
What you mean poop?
Poop.
Oh, okay, sorry. Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's you're equipped with your red bag.
Yep.
So you can go. That's good.
Yep.
Leave it in the hall.
Yep.
Then you've got your shower for your pee.
Oh God.
Yep.
What if you need to do something else?
What if you're feeling a little lonely on the Titan?
I think that would be the last thing on their mind, to be honest, at this point. Although, you know,
Brian, for that you have the ocean.
Oh, okay. That's fair enough. You could go. Yeah.
What I think about too is like under the deck, especially in the crew areas, and then inside cabins, like there's a lot of areas on a ship that have no access to any kind of outside light or sunlight of any kind. And so if the power's out, it's actually really dangerous. People could like rape people. Like it really could be. There's no accountability because no one can see anything.
That's right. You think there's no power, there's no food, there's no connectivity, you can't speak to anyone, and your first thought is, yeah, but I could get raped. I mean,
So are these rapists? Have they got like special internal goggles?
I don't know.
Night vision.
It's just scary. It's just scary because you have no way of seeing it. There's no light whatsoever. I mean, who knows what the fuck could go down there?
So what the conclusion we've come to is that it's essentially it's Carnival's fault because they should have double checked that what they'd instructed that company to do, they should have done it.
I blame the Americans.
Yeah.
I blame the American guests.
You know what? They should have given that $115 million to the guests and spent $180,000 fixing up this shitty ship.
Destroying the
They
ship.
should have flipped that around.
Yeah, but we also know how much everything costs on a cruise ship. So I think $118,000 probably pays for like a couple of meals in a specialty restaurant. I would think. I don't think that's going to go to many repairs. Okay. I also want to ask this. Do you think that any responsibility should be shouldered by the crew staff on board during the crisis? Do you think they handled it okay?
Before we answer this question, you won't be hearing from Brian for the rest of this fucking episode because of what he just said about the Americans. We've muted his microphone. Say that again, Rich?
So, do we think that the crew staff did everything they could? Do you think they could shoulder any responsibility, like, you know, opening the bar, causing chaos? Did they handle it as best they could?
I feel bad for the crew staff, honestly.
Yeah, there's no blame. There's no fault there.
No, I don't think so. Unless any of the crew staff were the ones, you know, responsible for doing the spray shield. But I'm sure that was totally different, you know, department.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So no responsibility.
None whatsoever.
In fact, I kind of feel worse for the cruise staff than I do for the guests because,
me too.
In my experience, the cruise staff gets most of the frustration of guests and their varying levels of entitledness. So
Yeah.
I feel really bad for the cruise staff, actually.
That is true. Okay, so the fire. We do know that someone lost their life when it was moored up. That was a terrible tragedy. But the fire, no one died. It wasn't deadly, so we do know that, and it was dealt with pretty swiftly. So, my final question is the passengers. Okay, it obviously was a rough couple of days. Was it that bad? Do you think? Really? Isn't it a bit of an adventure? You know, it's like, oh, I had to shit in a bag for a few days. At least I could shit. Do you know what I mean? At least there was that. Okay, there was food. It wasn't the best food, but there was food and it was available. Do you think that they may have gone a little bit over the top with it?
Seems like they were all overreacting a little bit.
Yeah, do you think so? Because, you know, they had to sleep outside in their tent cities. You're like, it's a night under the stars.
No, it sounds absolutely horrible.
Honestly, I would have kind of liked to be on that whole experience because like that'll make a lifelong story that those people get to tell forever. I'm sure it was so crazy at times. Like, so many highs and lows. I bet you some days they were like, this is incredible. And then like the next moment they're like sobbing in their arms.
Yeah.
Like, I can just see the whole roller coaster of it all. Like I would really enjoy that.
Have you been to Coachella?
No.
Have you been to Glastonbury, Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's no worse than that, is it?
Very similar.
It's the same. It's like being at a festival, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
I want to know who decided. I was like, oh, I know what's going to appease them. Oh, what? Cucumber and onion.
Yeah, someone came out with that idea. That's brilliant. Everyone loves a cold
Wouldn't it?
onion and
But
cucumber
chef,
sandwich.
surely cucumber and onion aren't the best coming in. I mean, I don't think they have that.
Yeah.
I don't know if they.
Shut your mouth. You're a sous chef. You shut your mouth right now.
Yeah, no. This is going to work. Believe me.
God.
So the CEO of Carnival, he was at Mobile when the ship arrived, and he did give like a heartfelt apology. And again, you can source this on YouTube. He's visibly distressed, and I think he genuinely is sorry. And I think sometimes you'll get CEOs of companies and you'll get like high level executives, and they're so rich they just don't give a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
I think this guy genuinely felt bad, and I believed him. And do you think because of that, and seeing once the dust has settled, do you think they should still be suing him because of that?
I'm American, so I always think suing is the answer. So
Best
yeah,
answer to everything. Just get a lawsuit on them. Yeah.
no, I think that Carnival fucked up pretty bad, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's great that they got their cruise paid for. It's great that they got a free cruise out of it. It's great that they got flight home. $500 is not enough to pacify that situation.
It would be frustrating, I get it, but I'm going to go with what you said, Garrett, where you've got a story to tell forever.
Yeah.
Right? And I wonder if there'll ever be a movie made of this particular cruise, because there would be some fun stuff that they could explore. It could be a good comedy movie, I think.
People teaming up, groups forming, leaders coming to like, I'll be the leader of this moment. Like,
Some Squid Game shit. Yeah.
Yeah, it really could. So there you go. So basically what we've deducted then is that Carnival, as we thought, are responsible because the buck stops with them. They did what they can. You think, Austin, that $500 is not enough? They should have had. What would you have said that all the passengers should? I
mean, the thing is, the CEO of Carnival could probably afford to give every single passenger $500,000.
Right.
I mean, I think at least $1,000 for each person.
$1,000.
I think. I don't know. I'm just pulling that out of my ass, but
I think 1,000 and then the flights and the refund.
yeah.
It's probably fair.
Yeah, I think that's fair as well.
Yeah, I guess it depends too on like what their what was their actual loss in the experience. Like, did they sleep in their throw up for 3 days versus did they just like enjoy the free liquor? Like, what was your personal experience that made you like convince me why we should give you the amount of money that you think you deserve? What was your experience so bad about?
Yeah.
Tell you how I would have kept myself entertained. I would have walked through the hallways and taken tally of who had the most impressively sized red bag.
Oh god.
Yes.
Wow, look, that bag is totally full. Holy moly.
Whoever does the biggest dump clearly needs the most food, so they should get fed first. That's what you're saying, right? Yeah. Okay. So there you go. That was the Poop Cruise Scandal. That was our episode of Too Good to Be True Crime, featuring mine and Austin's bandmates, Brian McCann and Garrett Deagon. We're still out in Japan. We're still on a cruise ship. Hopefully it will keep its power until we get off. And we'll see you on another episode. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening.
Good night.
Thank you for joining us, guys. That was wonderful. See you soon.
Minasan! You know.